What's up, guys? Doug Polk here, and welcome back for another episode of Poker Hands. And today we've got a live at the bike hand for you that was played between Barry Woods and Garrett Adelstein. We've been breaking down a lot of Triton hands, so this is a nice way to mix it up with a big pot from live at the bike. Let's go ahead and jump into the action.
That's the difference between you and I. I didn't go home after I forgot. Sorry, man. 150. I never worry about it.
On you? Yeah, 3 big ones.
Not your turn yet. It was... Now your turn.
Our hand begins with a bit of an interesting blind structure. It's 25, 25, 50 with a $50 big blind ante. That's right, there are 3 blinds as well as an ante in play, and it's to incentivize players to play a bit looser. When there is this much money at stake early, players are a bit more likely to play more hands, even though it does make the first small blind a pretty unpalatable position to play in. Action folds to G-Man and the hijack, who looks down at ace-queen offsuit and decides to raise to $150. Everything here is completely standard. Now we get over to Barry Woods in the cutoff with queen-jack offsuit, which is for most people a fold, but for Barry Woods, one of his most premium holdings, and he does decide to make the call. As Barry Woods makes this call, it makes me realize that no matter how much training material there is out there to help people play better at poker, and no matter how many videos you make trolling them into trying to fold some hands pre-flop, you'll never, ever get them to do that. And even if you're on your deathbed, as your last words into the world are, and just play correct pre-flop, they're not. So anyway, with that out of the way, Israeli Ron decides to call in the second small blind with 5 deuce offsuit. And the action's over to the big blind, who looks down at 5-4 offsuit and makes maybe the most reasonable call. Sure, 5-4 offsuit, not a very good hand, but he is getting pretty good odds. He does close the action, should probably still fold. Let's see a flop. The flop comes queen, queen, 7, so 2 players flop trips. G-Man out in the lead with his ace kicker, and the other 2 players have absolutely nothing. Now, Garrett starts us off with a $300 bet into 675, and I'd like to see this be a little bit smaller. On a board like this, if your opponent doesn't have any kind of pair, they're going to have to simply fold here, and when they have hands like 4s or 6s, they're going to have a very tough decision to make, probably have to let it go. So when you bet that very small size, you really take advantage of the fact that a lot of your opponent's range is fairly weak, and also on boards like this, there are no draws you have to be worried about. You want a size that reflects that. That's not to say 300 can be bad. I mean, especially with a hand like this, 300, of course, cannot be bad. But at the same time, a smaller bet, I think, accomplishes our goals for a more appropriate price. Now over to Barry Woods. He does have the option to raise here or call. Both seem totally fine to me. I think given a little bit larger flop size, I do like the decision to go ahead and call. You got 2 players left behind, so you're not really going to be able to bluff this spot much at all. And additionally, by calling, you allow more of your hands to play on later streets and possibly work in some bluffs later. I do like his decision to go ahead and call. Both the other blinds decide to get out of the way, and let's take a turn. The turn is an ace, improving Garrett to a full house, and the only hand that can beat him is pocket aces. Now, Barry's unlikely to call pocket aces facing an open, although it certainly is possible, so he knows he's almost always going to be good here and can play for stacks. Garrett decides to bet $700 on the turn, making things a little bit larger. I don't mind this size. You're not going to be betting this turn that often anyway. You can make some reasonable arguments towards either a smaller or a larger size. I can see some reasonable arguments either way. By betting small, you force a lot of hands in tough spots and give yourself more opportunities to bluff because of the effects of card removal. And by using larger sizes, your opponent's going to have some hands like possibly Ace X that float the flop. They have turn top pair. So, there's a couple of different ways you can play this. Don't really mind either way. Totally fine with $700 as well. Over to Barry's shoes. I don't hate the idea of a raise here on the turn, but typically speaking, when you decide to trap in these static spots, you mainly want to wait until the river so that you allow your opponent to keep barreling if they have a bluff, or improve with some of their draws to be able to pay you off on later streets. So I don't really mind either decision here from Barry. This is actually quite an interesting hand, a lot of different ways that we can go, but Barry does decide to make the call, and let's take a river.
Oh no.
Bet 1,800.
Pot's 44.75 now.
Raise it 5,000.
Barry, of course, raises with his full house. Third nuts. Garrett's thinking of Vegas and the freaking Mirage. I want Barry to think I'm pondering a call, but all I'm thinking is Vegas and the freaking Mirage.
All in. There you go. All in.
Holy cow, he just rips it. Wow. Third nuts. Barry's got the third nuts, Garrett's the second nuts from their point of view.
The river comes a jack, and Barry has improved to a full house. Now, in Garrett's shoes, again, obviously a spot that you're going to want to be betting. If your opponent has a boat themselves, they're likely going to raise. Although there is some merit for check raising as well. If you check, there are many queens, like king, queen suited or queen 10 suited, or like Barry, maybe like queen 6 offsuit that could go ahead and bet for value. And you give yourself a chance to win more money by betting or by checking and allowing yourself to raise. However, there are more hands in his range that would simply call a bet. Hands like maybe ace king or ace jack or ace 10 suited. So I really don't mind either way from Garrett here on the river. A lot of different options here, guys. This is actually quite an interesting hand. Now over to Barry facing a bet. And I thought about this for a bit. I do think you're going to have to go ahead and raise here with your full house. But it's worth knowing, what range is your opponent really representing here on the river? They're kind of saying that they have 3 of a kind or better. Now, Garrett could have queen 10 suited, king queen offsuit, king 10 suited for a backdoor straight. Maybe would be willing to bet a hand like either queen 9 suited or ace king, but I'm not sure he's going to always be raising that pre-flop with the queen 9 suited. And I think ace king might be inclined to check on a 4-way board that the pot's developed this far. So I do think this is a spot where queen jack is going to be around the bottom of the range that Barry Wood should be willing to raise. Now, Barry does decide to go ahead and bump it up. He makes it a little bit on the smaller side to 5,000, which I like here. On these board pair spots, it's a lot more polarized when you do raise, and the effects of card removal are going to be much more significant than on some other board textures, to where I do like this decision. Now, back over to Garrett. Garrett's going to have to raise again. He knows it's very, very, very unlikely he's beat here. But the question is, what price makes sense? And if you think your opponent can't have aces pre-flop, well, there's only one size that makes any sense at all. Now Garrett has moved in, back over to Barry. Tough spot, not what you wanted to see. But I do think that this is going to be a fold. And the reason is simple. Barry can simply have ace queen here. He can absolutely have ace queen in this spot, and it's not impossible he could have a hand like aces or queens, although not the most likely. It's also not impossible. So when I have queen jack here and I realize that I can have these better hands and my opponent is risking a lot of money here to win this pot, I don't have to call many hands at all. And also the fact that queen jack shouldn't be a hand Barry has in his range much at all, and ace queen is substantially better than queen jack. First off, he should have most ace queens if he's not going to 3-bet them, if not all ace queens, since there's a lot of combos of those. But additionally, when you have ace queen, you block your opponent from having ace queen as well, and also pocket aces down to roughly one combination each, or 3 combinations total rather. So in this situation, ace queen is so much better than queen jack, you simply don't have to call queen jack at all. The thing is, when people play hands and they get a big hand in a big spot, it feels like you should call, because the thing about relative value, I have a full house. Full houses are very good. But how good are they really in a spot like this when your opponent can have a lot of better boats, and so can you? In spots like that, you want to think about hands in terms of relative hand strength and not absolute. A full house here isn't nearly as impressive, because there are many hands that can make full houses in this situation. On a board like 9-7-3 deuce deuce or 9-7-7-3 deuce in early versus spots, well, in those situations a full house can be considerably stronger because neither player has as many boats in their range. But here, both of them have a lot of boats, and so it makes sense to play tight and call when you have your strongest hands.
Can I ever lay this down? It's going to take me a while. Take 2. You have ace queen, you have ace queen. Queen any good? Well, it's nice having the 30,000.
Ouch. Yeah.
There's no way I could lay that down.
Just your classic 600 big blinds boat over boat situation where you call a jam. You know, these things happen, apparently, when you play live poker. Thank you for joining me today for Poker Hands. If you like this episode, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys back again tomorrow at 11 a.m.